Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews, and this is my initial reaction, spoiler-free review for Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings. I literally just got back from the theater 2 minutes ago, went straight to setting up my computer. I had scheduled this live stream for 9 o'clock, and my movie ended up starting later than it was supposed to because the showing before that started later than it was supposed to. So I thought I was going to be back way before 9 o'clock, but then I ended up being back a little after 9. But I don't think anyone's watching right now anyway, so that's okay. That's doesn't really matter. But the point is, I just literally walked right in the door. Fresh off of seeing the film, so it is fresh in my head. And um, I will just say I really enjoyed it. I kind of expected to. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of my background with kung fu movies. I've never liked kung fu movies. Um, I remember they used to come on Saturday afternoons after my cartoons were over. That's how I knew my cartoons were over. These kung fu movies would come on, and my dad was really into them, and they were just boring to me. They were just like, "Chingnab, I thought you were dead. As you can see, I'm very much alive." And they just had no plot. They had no character development. I was never into them. And as far as the Shang-Chi comic books go, I guess it was from the Marvel Comics series, Kung Fu series, that I think I was vaguely aware had existed back when I was really into comic books, but I paid absolutely no attention to them whatsoever. So I never even heard of Shang-Chi until I first heard about this film, that this film was coming out, which was a few years ago now at this point. But I had never heard of him. I had a complete blind spot to that side of the Marvel universe, and as far as the comics go, I just completely ignored um, anything related to kung fu. And then when I was an adult, or I forget how old I was, probably in my 20s, when Crouching Tiger and Hidden Dragon came out, and I remember everybody made such a huge deal of this movie. It's like the best thing ever. And it has incredible visuals and incredible fight scenes, and it's just it'll blow your mind and all this stuff. And eh, like it still had no plot. I had no idea what was happening. I didn't care about any of the characters. It was just a bunch of fancy Matrix like flying around, and I don't even really remember that movie. So I would say that Shang-Chi is way better than Crouching Tiger or Hidden Dragon or any other kung fu movie that I've seen. And I expected it to be because it's Marvel. Because I know in Marvel they develop their characters and it would have a plot. And it did. And it still did have pretty fantastic visuals, especially in the big scene toward the end of the film. Um, and it did have good character development. I'm still not sure how I feel about the actor who played Shang-Chi. I don't. I had to think on that a little more. Something was a little off about his performance, but I'm not saying it was bad or anything. I got to think about it a little more, process it, and maybe I just need to get used to him because clearly he is set up to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe moving forward. Um, but yeah, it was a Marvel film, more so than it was a kung fu film, and it was a Marvel film that did have the best fighting choreography of any Marvel film to date, and it would be a failure in my opinion if it did not, because it's a freaking kung fu movie. It has to have really good fight choreography, or it would just not be very good in my opinion. And it did. It had excellent fight choreography, especially after watching Loki, which was terrible in that department. This was visually stunning. There was a lot of visually stunning scenes, not just with the fight choreography, but just some of the other visual effects. Some of it just looked like dancing, and it just the magic that they combined with the dancing and the fighting and the it was very a visually stunning thing to behold. So let me check the chat. I see Brandon is here. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just trying to talk and don't want to get too distracted. But I'll say hi. Hey, Brandon. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon went on forever. Yeah, I only saw that one time, and I don't even remember it. I saw it when it came out in the theater, like whenever that was, and I think I do remember that too. That it went on forever. I just was not interested in that film. Um, but this is way better than that because it's a Marvel film. It just very much felt like a Marvel film, and it's interesting that it. Here we are in phase 4, and now we're getting back into some. So we're introducing new characters. So we're getting back into origin stories. Um, I feel like the only one in recent years that we really have had has been Captain Marvel. And then I'm trying to think what the last one was before that, the original Ant-Man film. Because all the other ones are continuations of previously established films. Um, so we haven't really gotten a lot of origin story films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe recently. Captain Marvel comes to mind, but um, not it doesn't happen as much, and we're going to continue to get more. The Eternals will be another one, which is the next film release coming out in November. So as we go through phase 4, we'll start seeing more of those. So in some ways, it reminded me of an earlier phase Marvel film because of the fact that it's an origin story. Um, but it's kind of refreshing. It's kind of refreshing to get new blood, new characters, and get an origin story. I will say one of the knocks I have on this film is that I don't know that I loved the way in which they were disseminated all their exposition. I mean, it's tough because they did have a lot of exposition that was necessary for us to know, and they had to give it to us in some way. I just feel like it was repetitive the way that they did it. It was always some wise Asian sounding voice, Chinese voice, in a voiceover telling us a story like we're children. And in some cases, it was a flashback of Shang-Chi's mother telling him a story when he was a kid. But even when it wasn't, it was that same like wise Asian voice. 1,000 years ago, the Asian music in the background. A dark creature frightened the people of the lands until one day, it was that thing. It was like over and over and over and over. I felt like, okay, all right, can you think of other ways maybe to give us some of this exposition? I mean, I know we needed it. That's what's tough about origin stories is there's a lot of things that we need to learn. And I get that, but I felt like it was kind of repetitive. um, Also, there was a lot of humor in this film, a lot more humor in this film than I thought there would be. Some of it worked really well. I laughed a few times. I thought some of it fell flat for me, but for the most part, I do think the humor worked in this film. Um, yeah, when it's just more I think about it, the best way to describe it, it's a Marvel film. It had all the elements of a Marvel film, especially one of the earlier phases when we're getting an origin story. I really, really, really enjoyed this film. Coming from someone who's never liked kung fu movies, and it was a kung fu movie, but also, of course, woven a lot of the elements of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the magic, the mystical side, more mystical side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We do get a cameo. This isn't a spoiler because he's in the friggin' trailer, but we get a cameo from Wong from Doctor Strange films. And so very much the mystical side of the MCU, and I really enjoyed that. So speaking of the greater MCU, I am going to make a guess of when this film is taking place based on the context, based on the clues that we got throughout the film. And if I'm wrong, I will correct it when I do my spoilery review next week. Because I'll watch some of the other, YouTube videos where they break everything down and do all the Easter eggs and all that stuff, and they'll tell me exactly when this film was taking place. So if I'm wrong about this, I will correct it in my next review. But it really appears to me that this is taking place in the 5 years in between Infinity War and Endgame, while half the population is gone. There's a lot of lines that kind of lead in that direction, and when we do see characters from the greater MCU, which we don't see a lot, but when we do see them, they are characters we know uh, were not blipped. They were around during that 5 years, and Wong is one of those. Um, and there's a couple really nice cameos in the mid-credit scene. I'm not going to spoil who it is, but it was really fun to see certain characters. But they're characters that we know didn't blip, so I'm pretty sure that that's when this film was set. I don't know at what point between, you know, what side of the 5 years it took place. There's a clue that tells me that it's closer to Infinity Wars than Endgame, and I can't tell you what that clue is, and without spoiling things. But that is my guess. And again, if I am wrong about this, I'll correct it when I do my spoiler review sometime next week. But that is the vibe that I'm getting, that it's closer to Infinity War than Endgame. So that means when we see Shang-Chi next time, several years will have passed, or at least 3 or 4 or 5 years or something like that will have passed. That will be very interesting. This was very, very, very much an origin story, and it's largely self-contained. As I said, Wong is in the film. There's a couple of other nice little cameos in the mid-credit scene. Then there's one character who popped up from an earlier phase of the MCU, a minor character that I never, ever, ever thought we would see again. And I don't know how many people are actually going to be happy to see this particular character again. I thought it was kind of a fun cameo. But I was like, well, that character, I never thought I'd see that character ever, ever, ever again. But it was fun. Maybe not everybody will agree with that, but it was fun. Well, this movie was a lot of fun. Now, I alluded to the mid-credit scene. There is a mid-credit scene and a post-credit scene, just like all MCU films. The mid-credit scene is definitely worth it. I enjoy the mid-credit scene, and it does start to connect Shang-Chi to the greater MCU. The mid-credit scene does. Whereas the post-credit scene is very self-contained about the story that we just watched and doesn't affect the greater MCU. So honestly, if you got stuff to do, if you don't feel like sitting there for the whole credits to see the post-credit scene, I mean, you should probably know what it is because it does relate to the story of Shang-Chi, but you could probably go home and watch any number of YouTube videos that will break down the post-credit scene, and you can just watch it then. I don't know, but I'm not telling you not to watch the post-credit scene. If that's what you want to do, you very much should. But I'm just saying, if you got other things to do, the mid-credit scene is the one that's really worth watching, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't really have a lot more to say in the spoiler-free area. I'm going to take some time to digest the film a little bit more, think about what I want to say, and do a more thorough review where I'll get more into some of the details, and that one will definitely be spoilery, and I'll have that one out sometime between now and next Friday. So sometime within the next week, I'll get that one posted for you for those who have seen the film. I actually feel like I'm a little late in seeing the movie. I waited until Friday evening, whereas I feel like a lot of people were going midnight last night to see it. So I'll have more of my spoilery thoughts, my more thorough thoughts on the film in next week sometime. But I'll just say I enjoyed it. It was a fun film. It was a Marvel film. Great fighting choreography, some spectacular visuals actually throughout this film, and it was a good character story as well. Um, so it had all the elements of a good Marvel film. So I'll go ahead and give a rating for it. This is my initial rating. I reserve the right to change my rating when I do my review next week. I probably won't, though. I'm probably going to stick with it. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So 1's the lowest, 10's the highest. 8 is the score that I'm giving. A pretty good film. Not a 9 or a 10. Yeah, I think the humor was lacking in some places, as I mentioned, the exposition, repetition, and then I'm unsure about this actor at this point, the guy who played Shang-Chi, if he was really right for this role, but he might grow on me. But it's still solid 8. I really enjoyed this film. It's if you like Marvel films, and I'm sure you do if you're watching this, then yeah, go see it for sure. Um, and all right. Okay. Let me say goodbye then. Thanks for jumping in the chat there, Brandon. It's good to see you as always. And to those of you who might be watching this live or aren't in the chat, or if you are watching this in the archives, thanks for joining me as well. Please check out the rest of my MCU content, and do realize that every single week I will be doing a discussion live on Thursday evenings at 6 o'clock West Coast time about What If. And I will be doing that with Mark from Enchantment of Eternity and a rotating third guest. So do check out all of that. And if you're into Star Trek, I've got Star Trek stuff up. I've got Lower Decks reviews every week as well. And if you're curious about my transition or just transitions in general, you check out my videos on that as well. So thanks for watching. I hope you subscribe. Hope to see you soon. Have a good night, everybody.